Hello and welcome to the second episode of Owner Operated. I'm your host, Jesse Sapphire, and a small business owner, father, husband, and amateur podcast enthusiast. So what is an owner-operator anyway? An owner-operator is a small or independent business owner who also manages the day-to-day operations of the company. Join me weekly as I interview a new owner-operator to chat about his or her business and the experiences and lessons learned while managing it. Through these discussions, I hope to open our listeners to an untapped world I find equally fascinating, endearing, inspirational, and at times amusing. I hope you will too. In our second episode, I spoke with Melanie Moore, the owner of Elizabeth Clarke, a direct-to-consumer women's clothing company that offers professional attire for wherever women work, from their office to their apartment on a Zoom call. Our interview begins as Melanie covers her journey from her first job to later pitching investors in an entrepreneurship competition. Let me first start off by saying thank you very much for joining me here on the fledgling podcast of Owner Operated.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. I really enjoyed the chance to speak with other owner operators and decided that, who knows, maybe there's a niche out there that's also interested. So Melanie, you are the founder of a company called Elizabeth Clarke. Why don't we begin, if you wouldn't mind, tell me a little bit about yourself and your company.
Sure. So I actually started my career in finance. I studied economics and mathematics at the University of Tampa, which is where I'm from. And then I graduated and went to work for a bank called Houlihan Lokey, which is, I think it was a much longer name and they changed it to Houlihan Lokey in LA. And that was in 2006. And I did a 2-year investment banking analyst program, which is sort of the standard, the military, right, of finance, right? So you do your set time period of 100-hour weeks until you really can't do it anymore.
I always call that the mutual exploitation because they get you for close to minimum wage based on the amount of time that you're working for them. And then you get like an enormous jumpstart to your career.
Yeah, exactly. They don't hide the hours. It's very upfront, but it's intellectually sort of understanding, okay, I'm going to be working 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week, and actually doing it are two totally different things. It's very physically taxing. And like just emotionally taxing because it's just, no one ever tells you good job.
Right.
Right. Like that's just not the environment that you're in. You're there to make money, which I can talk a little bit more. It's just, they're kind of different in startups where you're kind of there ostensibly to quote unquote change the world, when in reality, you're kind of just there to make money, at least for a lot of these startups. But anyway, so yeah, I did my 2 years there. I worked in the telecom and technology group, which is not a choice necessarily. It was more the fact that coming out of the University of Tampa, I did not have a plethora of options. Goldman Sachs was not calling. Let's put it that way. So this was the job that I got, and I took it, and I, did my 2 years. And then I came to New York and I worked in-house doing like M&A and strategy for a company that owns several fashion brands. So that's how I kind of got my, dipped my toe into fashion and retail. And then after that, I actually had an idea for a retail company, and I entered that into the NYU business plan competition. This is in 2010. With my co-founder at the time who had graduated from NYU.
So wait, I'm sorry to cut you off. So you were still working. This wasn't as part of business school. You were still working when you did this plan.
I was still working. I was working at the parent company that owned these fashion brands. I'd been there for a couple of years at that point, and I had this idea for this company. Essentially, it was, if you kind of think about how luxury goods are priced, it's not an efficient market. Basically, the way it happens is you'll get goods into the floor in like January, February at full price, and then they're discounted steadily over the course of 6 months. And it's sort of a set schedule of as far as like, okay, you can take 25% off in March and et cetera, until you get to, end of season, versus trying to match, the customer's willingness to pay with the price of the goods. And since about 50% of all goods in department stores are sold at a discount, it makes sense to try to optimize this as much as possible and match, the right price with the right person. So you're not leaving money on the table, or, not selling the item at all, where the person is like, it's $1,000 dress, I'm going to go just buy the knockoff at Zara. So it was it was essentially a reverse auction to be able to essentially match supply and demand. And I had this idea. We entered the NYU Stern Businessman competition. It was a few hundred companies. We won.
Wow.
We were the first, because in the past years, they had always split the prize between the top two, and we're the first to win the whole grant, a $75,000 grant.
Wow, that's amazing.
And like a few years, Pinterest did it. Before it was Pinterest, it was called something else. But Ben, the CEO of Pinterest, did it like the year before us, which at the time we didn't know it was going to become Pinterest, what he had pitched and what he also won. But it's really a small world. Anyway, so that money and that winning that gave me the impetus to say like, okay, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go try to do the traditional venture capital startup route, which is let's go raise money. Let's go to Techstars, an accelerator program. Let's talk to all the big investors, grow really fast, the standard playbook. And we did, we launched at TechCrunch Disrupt. We got into Techstars New York in the first class. And so it seemed like things were all in the up and up, and it was going really well. Fortunately, the problem was the business model didn't work.
Right. Oh, I hate it when that happens.
Right. So basically, we overestimated people's willingness to deal with complexity in these purchasing decisions. And so we realized that auctions really only work in a few very specific scenarios, because it's highly cognitively taxing for people to think about how much they value something at.
Right.
And so it really only works for items that are one of a kind, that don't exist, whether that is a piece of art at Sotheby's or a Beanie Baby on eBay. It's an item that is something that could be not necessarily currency, but it's something that's tradable. It's something that could theoretically increase in value, and then you could sell it at a later date. Whereas with clothes and sometimes bags, like Birkins do have like their own market. But generally speaking, like even high-end luxury fashion, there's some resale, but it doesn't increase in value. It can't be used as any kind of currency. So we didn't have either of those things, because we were just selling essentially what department stores were already selling, which they had tons of, and a lot of times it was excess inventory. And so it just didn't work. But I learned a lot. I had like my co-founder sued me at one point. It was bad.
That's pretty rough. And how were you doing, like right at the time that it was all kind of failing? How were you doing emotionally?
Oh, it's so bad. Okay, so this gets worse. So we went into Techstars.
By the way, I'm only smiling because I know that this story has a happy ending. I don't want you to feel like I'm like staring at you with glee here. Like, tell me about how sad you were when everything fell apart.
Okay, so we get into Techstars, and my co-founder had not quit her job. She worked in private equity at the time. And Techstars is not, they're giving you money. They're giving you access to the top investors in New York and in Silicon Valley as well. They expect you to quit your job. That's like, that is what the money is for, right?
Right. To
be full-time. You can't be part-time. So my co-founder did not want to quit her job, which honestly I was kind of fine with, because I'd done all the work anyway. And I was like, okay, take what you'd already vested at that point, which was like, I would say 14% or so of the equity. We'd split it 50-50, which rookie mistake, of course, you know, happens to the best of us. But yeah, so she invested something like 14%, I want to say. And I'm like, just take your 14%. You'll have to give up your board seat, obviously, if you're not working at the company. And then that's fine. And you can collect a check. You don't have to do anything else. She did not accept that. She wanted a 33% and to keep her board seat, which the investors at Techstars, who are kind of also advisors to you, essentially told me, like, this is a deal breaker. Like, no investor is ever going to give you money. If there's a founder that has left the company, that's no longer involved, but still has this much control.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a red flag even to begin with. Like, you just won the whole competition, got your start, and then don't want to jump in.
Right. So this basically devolved into her suing me for this 33%, which I don't, like, it literally
was this happening as you were starting?
Yeah, this was during Techstars. So this was happening, racking up like literally 50 grand in legal bills. And Techstars decided that it would be a great idea to turn Techstars New York into a reality television show.
Wow.
So it was supposed to be on Bloomberg, but it wasn't developed by them. It was, you know, these just, I don't know, random scammy reality TV director. And they assured us, everyone in the program, multiple times, that our private conversations in private meeting rooms were confidential.
Mm-hmm.
They were not.
Oh, no.
They promised us that essentially, you know, the whole selling point of this is Bloomberg, it's not Bravo. We're not trying to sensationalize this. We want this to be a documentary about you starting a business, all of the companies. Turns out that wasn't true. They actually hired a narrator to say things I did not actually say, to literally make up facts. They also tricked us into signing the release. So before we got in, we came in to do sort of this final presentation, I guess, about the program. Everyone who applied or like had made it to the final round. And they were shooting, what they were saying was just a little interview, and we signed the release. And I didn't realize until later, like, that released the entire show.
Got it. So it was like the bait and switch of, here's this little thing, you know, here's a release for the promo. Just kidding. It's a release for everything that we're doing.
Yeah. And we didn't even know about the show. We didn't know anything at the time when we accepted into Techstars. And then Techstars was like, if you don't do the show, we're going to kick you out. So
just to jump ahead a little bit. So other than getting sued, being part of a reality show that you had no intention of being, how fast did it all come to a head?
That process from when we entered to when like it failed was 5 months.
Wow. Right. And just the 180 of like the high of winning a competition that Pinterest won, did you say the year before?
Yeah.
Right? And didn't become Pinterest a year later, but still became Pinterest pretty quickly. Right. Yeah. And going from that high to then 5 months later, what?
So failure.
Like many business owners, while Melanie was initially introduced to failure, she picked herself up and, learning from her past experiences, bootstrapped a women's fashion brand as a subscription business. But as you'll hear, she wasn't done changing her business model. And so let's take a step back and talk about direct-to-consumer subscription women's fashion. And for those of us, my hand is certainly up, don't have a ton of experience with that. Can you kind of walk me through the industry and how that business model works and what's really happening?
So subscription boxes, consumer subscriptions have really been around since like the Columbia record days. Remember those ads for 1 cent CDs back in the 90s?
Can I just tell you, I would spend hours putting the little stickers. You know how they gave like little stamps? And it would be like, pick which album you want and put it on the little postcard. And I would spend hours doing that. And of course, would never send it in. And then one time I did, and And I think they had this model where you just like send it in and then they bill you later.
Mhm.
But I was like 10 years old and I didn't have any money and I certainly didn't have a credit card. And so just like a bill showed up and I remember panicking, like just absolutely panicking. And I didn't even know if I could tell my parents anything. And I just like ripped it up and squirreled it away. And then like the bills would show up and I didn't know what to do. And basically like, I think at one point, like I confessed to my parents who immediately just laughed. Cause like they were like, okay, well, you're 10 years old. So like nothing bad is going to happen to you. Like you're not going to go to jail. But you know, probably we need to pay $30 to these people and you've bought, you know, 10 CDs and you can work it off.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So that's the origin of the subscription model.
I mean, I believe that's the origin of the sort of the modern subscription model. And then that kind of obviously fell out of favor and Birchbox really brought it back in its current form. So their idea was instead of when you go to the mall and you buy a full-size product, you get additional samples. And that the idea behind that was that you would try something out like a particular product and then come back and buy the full size. The problem with that is that you have a limited distribution because you're only giving samples to people who've already made a purchase of a full-size product. And their idea was to turn it around and say, okay, we can actually charge people for samples, which is a very novel idea, and use it as a push mechanism instead of pull. So they were able to, or the idea was that we would be able to send all these samples out and then convert those people to full price customers.
So the subscription model, a lot of people have taken off on it, right? And we've seen it with, well, you know, you tell me. I mean, I consumables and clothes. I mean, tell me more. Like, where hasn't it gone?
So it's not entirely consumables, but that's where the real volume drivers are in the business. So Amazon, of course, now they have subscribe and save. They got rid of those dash buttons and now everything is on subscribe and save, which I think is better for them because they're getting recurring revenue. And then yes, Razor's Dollar Shave Club, that video that they put out went viral. And then I think they got bought by Unilever. And then, I mean, there is a website called My Subscription Addiction, and you can look at, there are thousands of subscription boxes. They have a directory, and you can, I mean, anything that you could possibly think of, there is a subscription box for. And most of them, because there's two models. There's the replenishment model, which is basically what Amazon does. They're going to replenish, you know, your paper towels and things as you run out. And then there's the sampling model, which is what Birchbox pioneered, and which is the model that most companies will use when they don't sell something that is quote unquote subscribable, shoes or apparel or beauty or home or anything along those lines. You don't, once you buy it once, you're not going to buy the exact same thing again. So those are kind of the two models, and the vast majority of, I would say, the subscription businesses, if you're to look at the volume of those, are going to be in the sampling side of the model, whereas the replenishment side is pretty much dominated by the large, you know, by Amazon and by, like, I guess Unilever now, and those brands that, because in that game it's really more about margin, right? And you need the volume. So it's really interesting because right now we are going through a transition of trying to figure out what we're going to do with our subscription, because actually it's not the majority of our revenue anymore.
Got it.
We sell a la carte now, and that's 50% of our revenue. It's grown over the last couple of years. So we're trying to understand how we want to go forward. It's actually a longer discussion. So we moved our entire site from our a la carte site from Squarespace to Shopify. And we just launched that last month. And then now that we're on Shopify, that gives us a lot more options as far as speed to development time, because the infrastructure is already there. Whereas with our subscription website, we had to build that fully custom from scratch. So it's not on any sort of platform.
Got it.
Because when we built it in 2011, subscription software did not exist. Stripe didn't even have subscriptions yet. So it had to be custom built, which makes it much harder. Like if I want to take my custom subscription website and add on a la carte purchasing, I have to build an entire inventory management system to do that.
Right.
Which doesn't make sense because that already exists on Shopify. So we've moved our a la carte site over to Shopify. That was more simple because that's what it's built for. And now we're trying to think about, okay, we need to move our subscription site over to Shopify. And we had a few options. Do we want to go with an existing player, an app, a Shopify app that like a Recharge or Bold? Do we want to custom build it ourselves? Or right when COVID started, we're like, why don't we build it ourselves and then sell it ourselves? You know what I mean? Like sell it as an app in the Shopify app store as a subscription service.
Got it.
So that because, I sell pencil skirts and blazers. At the beginning, like no one's in the office. No one's buying pencil skirts.
So I was gonna go there. So before we jump to it, hit me with some basics. So what is your company? When you started taking off on subscriptions, you sold, I think you said the first season you sold 7, and they were basically duct taped together. And it was product that you had purchased on Alibaba, and you had a basic marketing site, and you sold through subscriptions. How big did it get? Over the years.
I think we got to at one point like just 1,500 subscribers or so. It never got huge.
And that's 1,500 each month getting a box.
Each quarter.
Each quarter.
Because people don't buy clothes that much. And then we started going from buying it on Alibaba to designing and developing and manufacturing it ourselves overseas in China, which was a long learning curve. But I'm happy to say we have some really good partners and strong supply chain now, but it took years to put into place.
So you became more vertically integrated because you brought in design and you brought in the contract manufacturing.
Exactly. So basically the turning point of the whole business really was 2015. And that's when we launched the Unstainable shirt. So the idea was, because we mostly focused on when we first started, the perfect white shirt. That was the idea. The perfect white shirt for $30 or less. One of the initial sort of one of the initial experiences I had that informed the first idea for Elizabeth Clarke was I was shopping in Soho and I wanted to find like a basic t-shirt, just a white t-shirt. And I spent 5 hours and I couldn't find anything that wasn't $600 or completely see-through. Wow. And this is insane. Like, why can't I find a basic? And then it actually happened again a few months later where I was searching for a blouse, just a basic blouse. And I couldn't find anything. I found one blouse, it was $250, completely see-through, and made of like polyester. And I was just like, why can't I find basics? So and this is also, Everlane started around the same time. And I'm not the first person to come up with this idea of basics. Now it's very much on trend. But at the time, the market was really underserved when you're talking about sort of basic items, whether it was a black pant, a white top, a blouse, whatever it might be. It just, great quality essentials didn't really exist in the market.
I see. And what caused the aha moment with the idea of like Unstainable?
So Unstainable was, we were getting feedback from our customers that, hey, I love the idea of wearing white. It sounds very fancy, but I have a toddler. I can't,
right.
Like I can't realistically, practically wear white in my daily life. It's going to get stained. It's going to get destroyed. Especially tees. People, a lot of women said they just go through them. Like they're disposable almost.
Right. I've heard that. Sorry to interrupt. I have heard of people that literally they just wear their t-shirts once, which is crazy to me personally, but there are a lot of people that feel that way.
Yeah. So that was essentially like why and then I came across an article on super hydrophobic technology, which is essentially what it uses. And I thought, hey, if you could put this on a boat, to keep barnacles at bay, why can't you put it on fabric? Or, right.
Yeah.
So I started doing research, and I realized that you can actually put it on fabric. But it's going to require some development time to figure it out, because you don't want to have it coming out feeling like sandpaper.
Right.
And so that was sort of what took about, so I had the idea in 2014, we launched in 2015, and it took about a year to figure out how to do it where it was going to be a really nice feeling garment, as well as being, repelling spills.
And what was that design process like? I mean, are you on the phone with manufacturers overseas and, saying like were other people trying to make the same type of clothing, and was this a trend, or were you kind of on the forefront?
So there was a couple other Kickstarters, or I think one, maybe or two at the time, that had done it or tried to do it for menswear.
Mm-hmm.
But it was people who really didn't have experience in apparel, like making apparel. So ultimately those campaigns, one was made a ton of money. I think another didn't. But then ultimately it never really went anywhere as I was following their path. And I thought, I think and also, who else tried it? Brooks Brothers tried it. They had like a stain repellent tie at one point, which flopped. And I looked at, kind of when we had launched it, and there was no real marketing around it at all. It just was a normal product page with a tie, and it had one little bullet point that said super hydrophobic technology.
Were you nervous that, if you sold an unstainable blouse, that women would say, well, I don't care if it's stainable or not, I want it to look good?
So it had to be both, is the answer.
Okay.
And that is absolutely something we learned. Like, if she doesn't want to wear it, if it's not cute enough, she's not going to buy it at all.
Right.
That the unstainable technology is a hook.
Mm-hmm.
It gets your attention. It doesn't keep you around. So we wanted to make sure that the items we were selling fit really well and had really high quality fabrications and construction methods, and that we were delivering sort of great customer service and like the entire apparatus that makes a consumer product, great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, the unstainable, showing that video where you see coffee.
I love this video. Go ahead.
So we have a video that we shot where we have a model that we've worked with for years, and she agreed to do this with us, and she's wearing the unstainable shirt. And we like reconfigured my apartment actually at the time to shoot this, and we took this chair and we covered it in plastic wrap and like put plastic on the ground. And then my marketing manager at the time had a cat that I thought, hey, let's make the cat a star. So she brought her cat. She wrangled the cat with, literally fed this cat like a entire bag of treats to get her to jump into the model's lap while she's holding coffee, and then spill the coffee all over her. And granted, it's not all one shot, it's not all one take, it's a few different shots strung together because that cat just would not cooperate. But we did get the shot. We only got one real chance to see the cat jumping down and then see the coffee. But we got it, and we threw that on, put that on Facebook ads for years, and we got an amazing.
It was the 5 second shot that made all the difference. That's crazy.
Yes.
The ones I saw on your site were, I have to admit it did make me giggle. It was like, these models like basically just like dribbling on themselves. Right.
And, those are the newer ones. Yeah.
And it's basically like, I showed it to my wife and I was like, I think this is genius, right? This is basically like enough talking about like how sexy or how dominant you look. It's about like, we know you're at home. We know you've just spilled on yourself and you're about to be on a Zoom call. Right.
Right.
And like you need to wipe this off immediately. You're a complete slob. And just like this, so it's just so self-aware. And I love it. There's something about it that's just so honest.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. I definitely get feedback sometimes from our clients that are like, how are you in my brain? And I'm like, I've been there. Like I am the customer as well as the designer. Like I'm making things that I've always wanted and I've known, I've problems I've experienced. And I'm like, maybe other women, have experienced the same things. And maybe we should make something that actually is useful to women instead of just trying to sell them things that make them appealing to men. And it's not, it's that, but it's also every detail, right? Like if you've ever put on, you haven't, but if your wife has a shirt that has a keyhole in the back,
okay.
Right? A little key where you put it over your head and then you have to attach it in the back where it's a button and it's a little elastic that goes over it. And that's how you have to like attach it behind your head.
Oh, she's asked me to do, I sometimes have to do that for her, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what if you weren't there? What about women who are single, right? And don't have that option, or women who are older and have lower mobility and can't actually get their arms back there. So we made them magnets.
That's so smart. I don't know if this is an embarrassing story or not, and tell it anyway. So one time, a long time ago, I had a date, and I picked her up, and before we were going to head out, she was in an apartment. She invited me up to her apartment and said, hey, would you mind helping me zip up my dress? And she showed me that she had like a little stick with like fishing line that she would tie to the back of her dress on the zipper, and then just like pull the stick up to help it zip up in the back. Right. And I had this complete moment where I was like, it never occurred to me that like, there would be, single women out there that would like, I guess get their, doorman if they have one, or a friend or a neighbor or a sister, or what if they live alone, right? In just like a regular apartment building, like what do? Well, they need like the stick and the fishing line.
Right.
And like her stick, and so the point is her stick and her fishing line, like it busted or whatever, and she was like super frazzled, excuse me. And so I helped her with it. We went on and went on with our evening, but it was just this funny moment for me where it's like you've entered a whole nother world that you had no clue there were challenges out there that, is not like, that's not a challenge I've ever had in my life, is like how to put a piece of clothing on without help.
Right. And I think that it's funny that you mentioned that, because not in New York, now it's like more 50-50, but globally, most women's wear designers, right, are men.
Are they really?
Yeah, especially in Italy, it's very not as balanced. In New York, I want to say it's, the last time I checked, it was about 50-50. But it's still crazy. It's like not all clothes, specifically women's wear, right? Is designed like mostly by men. So, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you're not going to necessarily know about this problem where, hey, you can't get your arm behind your head that far to zip up your dress. Yeah. So maybe we should design something. And I do have it's like an extra long loop that's attached to the end of the zipper pull that you can grab and like pull up. So it's kind of like the stick and fishing line thing. But
I really hope we have this ability on our new like podcast website where you can leave a voicemail or like leave in a message. I really hope people like write in with like their solution to the like, oh yeah, like their version of this string and the stick. Like I bet you there's like so many like jerry-rigged solutions out there.
There are, I think, a lot. And pockets are a big one. I don't know if you know this. So men's pockets on jeans, I want to say are around 67-68% larger on average.
Got it.
So you can fit probably your entire phone in your front jean pocket.
Yes. Yes.
Can your wife do the same?
No, of course not. Hey there, I want to take a minute to talk to you about MenuHost.io, a brand new website that offers dynamic QR menus for restaurants or any other venue in the hospitality space. Quickly design and implement safe menus with our library of templates and easy-to-use dashboard. Instantly change specials and pricing anytime without reprinting. Gather important data on customers with MenuHost tracking capability, which can retarget your customers with advertisements through Facebook or Google. So go to MenuHost.io now to register for free and set up your custom menu within minutes. You can even order laminated table cards directly from MenuHost. So if your restaurant, bar, cafe, salon, escape room, or anything else that uses a menu is reopening and wants to do so safely, check out MenuHost.io right now. Hey there, owner-operated listeners. Did you know you can order custom printed products on Amazon? We didn't either until COVID forced us to reinvent ourselves. That's right, the team at ABG Print got crafty and launched a printing store on Amazon. And guess what? It's kind of awesome. Want a custom calendar for 2021? How about floor graphics for your business to execute a safe reopening? Maybe custom printed envelopes or a slick retractable banner for a trade show? Flyers, postcards, wire-bound presentations? ABG Print can do all that and more. We've been around since 1992, always owner-operated, and always focusing on customer service to deliver your business great printed products quickly. Head on over to abgprint.com or check out our store on Amazon at amazon.com/abgprint. Use the promo code 10OWNEROP, that's 10OWNEROP, to get 10% off any custom posters. Need something ASAP or have a confidential printing needs for a deal? We're here to help for all of your printing needs. Just give us a call at 212-398-1010. Okay, now back to the show. I think you understand your demographic, and let's talk about that for a second. So how do you define your demographic, your target audience, and how big do you think they are?
So that's an interesting question, because we're kind of in this state of flux of changing what we're selling and who we're selling to. But I mean, it's millennial women in the United States that have professional jobs, but to some degree now it's becoming also a little bit older demographic in that 55 to 65 range. Turns out they really love 24-hour pajamas. They love it. So women who have a job, right? Have a professional job. And that's who we've always kind of targeted, even from the beginning. Whether it was just with a white blouse, which evolved to suiting and other workwear, which now has evolved to work from home pajamas. We're still selling to the same woman. I know that's not a super specific answer, but
I get it. And so, I mean, let's cut to the chase, because I mean, I think everyone's going to be wondering, right? You're sending your subscription service for women's formal wear in February 2020, right? As of March 15th, right?
I'm still in denial at that point, but
okay. All right.
But yeah, by like April, May, we were like, oh, this is over.
Right. And had you even thought about ever selling PJs?
Never even crossed my mind to do sleepwear.
And so this is the part that's really interesting to me, right? When you're faced with such a change, like when you started this business, if someone said to you, hey, listen, there's going to come a time when there's no interest in women's workwear. And you're like, well, what do you mean? The shifts have changed, like the trends have changed? Like, no. Like, just no one wants any women's workwear. Like, what would you have said?
I mean, like, I need some data to back that up. What are you talking about? I mean, I knew that obviously the trend of remote work and the casualization of work, those were trends that had been happening. And actually, I've been working on a denim line previous to this. And that was what I planned to introduce in 2020 was jeans, women's jeans with men's pockets.
So let's go back to the pivot, right? So you're quickly realizing there's no interest in women's workwear. And what did you see as your options at that point? What did your company look like at that point? Like, did you have to lay off staff? Did you and how did you go about kind of pivoting?
So this is, it's kind of, everything kind of all happened at once. So I had been selling, after I launched the Unstainable shirt, I got picked up by QVC because it was, can pour things on television. Theoretically it'd sell, $1 million, which we did really.
The visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They love that stuff. So they picked up the line, and I'd been selling on QVC on air since 2018. And that was 75% of my revenue, QVC.
Oh, wow.
And also the vast majority of my attention and time and focus for the past like 2 or 3 years. So I actually, was really trying to make progress on my own business in like 2018, 2019. But I was so focused on QVC that it was very difficult. Especially because I was also selling the product myself, and I had to actually travel to Westchester, Pennsylvania, like 2 or 3 times a week. And especially like, being on air very early or very late, it makes it incredibly difficult to have like a normal schedule and focus on something like my own business. So I was kind of a miracle that my suiting a la carte business was doubling, was on track to double for 2020. Because I hadn't really been able to focus on it. And so then COVID hit. They turned all of the, they were not having guests come physically to Westchester anymore. Everything was going to be over Skype. And then people immediately stopped buying, pencil skirts and dress pants and blazers. So all this kind of happened at the same time. And then we'd started to think about May and April, like April, May, what can we do that's going to be sort of a pivot that's going to help, the business survive. And one day I was so kind of demoralized by everything. I was just like, came out one day, into the living room, and I said to my husband, like, fuck it. What if we just do like business pajamas? Like, I'm like, I have no idea. Like,
right.
And he's like, that's actually a really good idea. He's like, maybe you should do it. And I started doing the research and doing sketches, and we sent out, a survey to our top 1,000 customers with some sketches, with some questions, like, is this something you'd be interested in? And it came back like overwhelmingly, like, yes.
So I
want to buy one.
This is the part that always excites me, right? Because there's a lot of people that can be like drunk at night, and come up with ideas like business pajamas or like microwaves that work in reverse or whatever. And, I think, but then like come morning, right, they don't, there's no idea to, well, I'm going to go ask 1,000 people whether they would go buy that. Right. And how do you go do that? Right. Because that's to your point, your background is in banking, it's in, economics. You clearly have a numbers focus, right? And you want to prove it out. How do you go do that?
Well, I'm going to give you a cop-out answer because it's just something that comes very naturally to me, to just do things. And also I think it wasn't like, oh, I'm someone I've worked for a salary all my life, and now all of a sudden I'm gonna like start my own company. When I did that jump, that was much scarier because I was really jumping into the unknown. But then thinking about, well, let's think about this pivot, like creating a survey, sending it out to, my customers. It's not a lot of risk in that. If they don't like it, that's fine. We'll think about something else.
How many did you get to respond? Because, I'll be honest, we've sent out, as we try to think about different pivots for our business, we send out emails all the time. And it's hard to get people to tell you what to do or what they'll buy, at least for us.
Like 75%.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Really. So you had strong brand loyalty.
Yeah. Like the people who like E and C, like, love it.
That's huge, right? That is so valuable, right? Because you can't execute the pivot without that loyalty, right? Without that affinity. Because if you didn't write that email or send that survey to 1,000 people and it was just like an idea you came up with in the night or in the morning or whenever you came up with it, right? Would you go ahead and try to develop it without, people saying, oh yeah, that's a great idea?
I mean, I did with the unstainable shirt. I had a hunch that it would be successful. And I had talked to customers, before. I kind of gathered this customer feedback that people were like, I can't wear white, it's going to get stained. But I didn't do a full survey. I just was like, this is genius. I'm just going to make an unstainable shirt.
So there you just trusted yourself to just go, you just trusted that it would work.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I think looking back on it, actually I didn't realize how much, I really thought it was like the unstainable part of it was so much of a game changer that it was like a fashion kind of almost didn't matter as much. I was just so convinced that like people would just go crazy over this particular feature. And that is true to some degree. It hooks you. But I think then what we found out is that if you don't have, it's not enough to keep people around. It's not enough to keep them buying, because people spill on themselves, but it's on it. Like most people don't spill on themselves like that much, where it's going to be one of the biggest problems they're facing, like in their wardrobe.
Story. I have purchased clothing myself that I was sold into because it was stain resistant. When I was 18 years old, I needed some money before I went off to college. I was going to work for a catering company. Shout out Corcoran Caterers in the DC area. I had to go get a tuxedo because I was going to be serving at weddings or whatnot. So I went to this company. It was called Sims. I think they're bankrupt now, but they had a slogan, which was, I still don't understand, but their slogan was, an educated customer is our best customer. And I'm not even sure what that means. But I walked in and I went to go pick out a tuxedo, and a salesman helped me. And he literally came up to me and said, oh, you're going to be a caterer. He goes, let me show you this one. It's made of this material. Roquefort dressing will wipe right off. And so, what did I know? I bought it on the spot.
That was actually like in early 2020, I was like, we should really go after the hospitality, market aggressively, because this is really where it's going to be successful.
That's a good idea. That could work for female caterers, like catering blouses and things like that. I like that.
Yeah, idea. Because I also realized, like, I talked to a few people that are in the industry, and generally waitresses, like, they buy their own, like, you don't get it assigned to you necessarily, like your clothes. Like, they just tell you, you need a black shirt, it needs to have a collar, you need a white shirt, it needs to like be called, whatever. They just kind of tell you. At least from the small amount of research I did before COVID.
Yeah, you had to like show up with your own. Like, they don't buy enough because they don't want to fit everyone out, and everyone's constantly changing, and the turnover of the employees are too fast, and they're all contractors anyway. So it's just much better to just tell everyone that they have to show up with their own uniform.
Right. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting, but obviously, in March, April, restaurants didn't exist anymore.
Right.
So that was on hold, but I do think eventually, like, we should do it, because I think it would be a good revenue stream. But
so PJs.
Sorry.
No, yeah. It's fine. We're back to PJs now. So you reach out to 1,000 customers, 75% of whom get back to you. And of the 75%, like, I assume
like 86% are like, yeah, this is cool. I want to buy one. Or was something like 60 something percent said, yes, I want to buy one. Another 25 or so were like, I want to try it on first, but I'm interested. And like 10% were like, no, this is not for me.
Business PJs, get out of here.
But anyway, we got really good feedback. And then we just started developing the line, which is just making technical sketches, making tech packs. We already had developed this vegan silk fabric that we had already delivered were in queue to be delivered for summer 2020, but blouses. And we said, let's repurpose this and turn it into a vegan silk, pajama.
And so instant success, how's it done?
I mean, really good. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so we sent it out to, I think we've sold around 12 or 13,000 in the last couple of days.
In the last couple of days, you said?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And how long has it been, and how long have you been selling it?
Tuesday.
Okay. So this is brand new, but you had the idea for a while. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Well, it takes a long time to develop apparel.
Yeah.
So that's like actually, yeah.
That's a heck of a launch.
And it's all pre-orders too. People are pre-ordering. It's not even in stock yet.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So how does that work?
So this is becoming more of a trend in the industry. We essentially, I've already selected 3 styles that I've already developed and ordered and put into production and are going to be here in December, early December. And those are the 3 that were the most popular styles and the most kind of basic styles as well, which is something you learn in fashion. Like your black is always your #1 bestseller. You're always going to sell like a basic black pant or basic white top way more than any kind of fashion item, regardless of what it looks like. So I just picked kind of the 3 that were the most popular, the most quote unquote safe that I thought would do really well, and they have.
So what have you done other than your initial startup? What have you done at Elizabeth and Clarke that has flopped, that you thought would be like you were excited about and it just flopped?
So QVC, actually.
Okay.
So we started in 2018. The first 6 months, it was like insane numbers. I was like #1 in every show I was on, sold out of everything. It was really crazy. And then second season was good. Like we had some hits and misses. Some things that did great. We had a couple things that really didn't sell through. And this is early 2019. And then fall 2019, that collection just totally failed. And I tried to, essentially what I tried to do is sell some of the workwear items, which I thought at the time, I'm like, well, there is a demographic on QVC that's still working, and she's not served at all, really in any real fundamental way with the current product offering. So I thought it was kind of filling a white space. But looking back, I'm like, well, maybe it's just not a big enough market within that QVC demographic. And so I started working on denim because I was like, okay, the QVC customer, she loves a good jean. Let me make an unstainable white jean. Because that's something that they sell a lot of. It's like white jeans. So that had been in development for a while, just because it takes a long time to figure out the formulation of the finish with the fabrication, and pricing as well, and what manufacturer is going to pick it up, because it's such a specialized type of manufacturing that some manufacturers either they can't do it or they don't know you well enough, so they don't want to do all this development work for you if they don't know they're getting an order. So that just took a while. And basically what happened was in January or late January, early February, I went on air with a t-shirt. We did really well. We got offered this what they call a big deal, which is essentially your product of the day. And you want these. They pay us huge orders. They give you all this promotion over multiple days. It's good. And they planned them months in advance. So that was scheduled for the end of June. This was pre-COVID when I got offered this. But then, and in between what had happened between end of 19 and early 20, they changed buyers. They'd moved me over to a new buyer. So I guess she was trying to give me a second chance or whatever. Which I had kind of thought, okay, I'm going to do denim. I'm going to get away from suiting. I'm going to do just the t-shirts that always sold out and did really, really well. And I'm going to do them in a bunch of different colors and prints. And that's going to, hopefully like turn this ship around. So then COVID hits. QVC's business, it was interesting. So their total revenue actually went up with COVID because people are home watching TV,
Right.
but their fashion vertical declined like very like significantly. Just because nobody's wearing jeans in the house.
Right.
Right? Very few people are. So I had, during this time, like I tried to really had, conversations with my buyer, like what you need to like, tell me what's going to happen. Are you going to give me orders for 2021? Because I had already had orders in for this fall. They placed them so far in advance.
Sure.
Because if you're not, then I need to know, because at the time, like they are, this year, 75% of my total revenue. So if you're going to drop the line, like I need to know now. I have employees, I have bills to pay. And like, she just kept saying like, let's wait, see how the big deal does. Let's, wait for these results and then we'll make a decision. And so during this time, I'd done this entire like statistical analysis where I broke down the results of like every single time I'd ever been on air, and like every single detail of every airing, like what the style, the color, the time of day, the host, if the host wore it, if I was on Skype or in real life, like every single possible detail that you could imagine, I broke down and then did a regression analysis on that to figure out like what is actually driving sales. Because just to me, it just seems so like where they place you as far as like what times you're on and how long you have on air and things like that just seems so random to me. And I just wanted to find some patterns so that way I could design something that would actually sell through.
Right.
Consistently, instead of having like some things work and some things not. And I essentially came across this relationship in their business model that I don't think they even know about. And I presented this to them and I don't think they really believed me, but like the more minutes so they the way they judge your success is dollars per minute. So how many, sales you make per minute. So if you're on for 10 minutes and you make $100,000, that's 10,000 DPM, that's the metric they really try to optimize for.
And what's like a good DPM for your category?
Like, yeah, well, it depends on time, if you're in prime time or not. If you're not in prime time, anywhere from like 5 to 8,000, depending. 1,000 per minute. If you're like really at like 3 a.m., then it's much lower. But if you're at like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, 5 to 8, somewhere in there, they're going to want you to hit that. And then if you're in prime time, anywhere from like 10 to 20 to 10 to 18, it's going to be, very good. And I found this relationship that the more minutes you're on air, the higher your dollars per minute is, which shouldn't necessarily be the case because it's theoretically already taking into consideration that how, the per minute sales. But actually it showed that like it was, the more you were on air, the more your DPM went up.
Right. And I'm just trying to think about why that could be, because it takes a couple minutes for people to get the sale, right? They have to see the water being spilled. They have to see the jeans fit. They have to see whatever it is about the product. And then they have to go through their mind and believe. So like if you broke it down, that first minute, they're not buying it, but the third minute they're buying, so
I
like,
think maybe, you just have to convince people, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
But they didn't, when I presented this data to them, it's like they'd never even heard of it before. Like they never even knew that this relationship existed. And it was very strong. It was highly statistically significant.
I wonder if it's different for different products. Like some products have like a 30 seconds before they start selling, and some products have like 3 minutes.
I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I don't have access to any data for any other brand. And maybe that's true for big, huge brands that that customer knows really well. And they, love already, or it's like celebrity launches, things like that. Like when Jamie Foxx came or whatever, like that sold out immediately. So they were just completely uninterested in anything I had to say about this.
Well, were they cut it? Just so I understand. So were you saying, so listen, I'd love to come back, but I want to be on for more minutes because it'll actually be better for both of us?
Yes.
And they
Exactly.
were like, we want you on for like 2 minutes. And you're like, so I know that that's going to be unsuccessful.
Right. And like the thing that I was trying to get across to them, I'm like, if you're going to give me over the course of like, let's say a quarter, 80 minutes, I'm not asking for actually more minutes. I'm just saying group them into small, you know what I mean? Instead of giving me 16 hits with 5 minutes each, give me 10 hits with 8 minutes each, or 4 and 8. So that way you're not actually paying for, quote unquote, paying for me to have more airtime. I'm just grouping it together, and that's going to like produce more money for you.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like, they're like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like,
sure.
like,
I guess all this math is just lying to you. Sure.
Right. That's gotta be so, I mean, that's so frustrating. And so I've always been fascinated in how so do they get a rev split, or do they don't guarantee
So it
anything?
depends on your terms. It depends on terms. They gave me very good terms. So they bought
Okay.
everything up front, 100%, no returns.
Really?
Yeah.
So then, and your incentive then is just to do really, really, really well so they keep coming and buying more.
Yeah. I'm definitely incentivized to do well so they give me more orders. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, so in June, did you end up going on Skype, and what happened?
So they kept saying like they really wanted to see the results for this. They gave me the goal for it, which was super high. And then they made it even higher, like last minute. They like increased it. And like, I went on air. I absolutely crushed it. I did 117% of my goal. They were not pleased.
Not pleased.
Because they were not pleased because they were like, well, you met your goal, you exceeded your goal, but the sales slowed down at the end, and also you didn't do enough online. And they're like, and you didn't bring in enough like new names. I'm like, why?
Like new
like,
names,
why?
basically being like
New customers that they haven't had before.
Got it. Okay. Interesting.
Or they're like, well, the margin wasn't high enough. And I'm like, I don't set the prices, like the retail price. Like, it was the most frustrating experience because it was just like, I just sold $300,000 of a t-shirt for you, right?
Right.
And then you're unhappy. And they're
$300,000 of a t-shirt in like what, 10 minutes?
That was over the course of a weekend, but it was the total minutes of prime time, like 10, 12 minutes or something, maybe 12 minutes. And then non-prime time, like 40 minutes.
Are those live or pre-recorded? Those must be so stressful.
Live.
That's live.
Yes, it's extremely stressful. I mean, some
do you
people are
get
very
to
good
practice?
at it.
Do you get to practice, or how does that work?
So there are people that you go through a guest class and then you have to get certified as a guest, but that's not really practice. I did work with a consultant who like does this for a living. They prep people to go on QVC.
Right.
Because it's like this very specific way of selling, very specific formula, which you have to learn. But even then, like it's live. Like the formula is just simply guidelines. It's not like scripted. So, and then also I'm spilling. So what if something goes wrong? What if I like flip on the floor on like some wine that spilled or whatever?
Yeah. Or what if not that I would expect this to happen, but what if there's just some fluke and like it spills and it doesn't come out, or like
that's happened. Like sometimes because you're not supposed to rub it in. You're supposed to like either rinse it or shake it off. And I've had hosts that have taken the towel and like rubbed it into the thing, and I always keep an extra one behind the spill station, so if that happens I can like pull it out while they go to another shot. But yeah, it's extremely stressful, and I actually like really hated it.
You must have been good at it though.
I was good at it. I've actually always been really good at presenting. I used to do I would win public speaking competitions in 4-H, like statewide public speaking competitions when I was a kid.
Well, and you won the one early on that we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah, and then the Disrupt was like 1,500 people on stage. Like, so I'm comfortable. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm good at it, but I don't really like it.
I can't imagine the pressure of having 10 minutes, the results of which drive your business's success or failure, like in a very material way. Because you said at one point, I believe you said it was 75% of your revenues, right?
Yes. Now we're getting to like the meat of the problem here. Like, and it's also very much a what have you done for me lately environment. So it doesn't matter that you did amazing sales last quarter. Like, what matters is like this hit, right? Are you number one? Are you, or number two?
Number one or two compared to like in the category DPI?
In the show. Because you can see in the green room, I mean, obviously not after COVID, but when we're there, you could see everyone's results.
Got it. So you're literally up against the other people in the green room.
And some like huge brands, right, that do hundreds of millions of dollars in sales.
And how many other people there are like also the founder and owner?
Very few, not that many. It's almost all people they hire, like that have like a broadcasting background or something like that.
Got it. So they're like a trained gun with sharp elbows who's there to just like eat you alive.
Yeah, I mean, people, I would say actually the people who are there that are hired either as, they're actors or they were newscasters in a past life, those people are generally have the least sharp elbows because they don't really care. Like, they care if it does well or not, but it's ultimately like they're getting a check. It's a salary. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's not their business, but yeah, some other, so this actually gets to the heart of what my kind of the failure or like the most insane like story of my life. So, okay, the big deal happens. I like sell out. I do amazing. They're unhappy. Literally, that was a weekend. That happened like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I just happened to like be watching Monday night primetime fashion. I see this woman with an unstainable white jean on QVC using my stuff, like literally my spill station, my liquids, my demo, like every single thing that I designed, like literally my personal property to sell her white unstainable jean. And the thing is like, it's not like the buying team who brought this in, it's not like they don't know that they sell an unstainable shirt, right?
Right.
It's everything signed off by the VP. It's not like different buyers and they didn't know. Like, they knew. And they had decided back in February to drop me. And instead of telling me like a decent, like honest person would, so I could actually plan, right, my life, they kept me stringing along until they launched, my own product. And then they dropped me.
And they also needed you to help finish selling your inventory through that they had pre-committed to buy.
Yes, exactly. Which I would have done anyway, but because I'm actually like an honest person.
That's got to be so frustrating.
I was like ready to like go to the New York Times and like just blow shit out of I have never been more angry about anything in my entire life.
Did you attempt to talk to them about this issue, or was it just
so I sent like a scathing email. I set up a call with my buyer. I chatted with her and she was like, her first response was, well, since we built the spill station legally, we own it. So that was her response to this entire thing.
Right. Okay.
And I'm like, I just lost it and I screamed at her and I'm like, you're trying to steal my company from me.
Got it.
Which is not a thing you do. It's like screaming at your boss, right?
Right.
And she basically was like, I can't be on this call anymore. And like, she brought in the VP. Like the next week we scheduled a call. And basically by that time I had already talked to I had a rep that brought me in, like kind of like an agent. And I talked to him and he was like, just suck it up, sell them another collection or try to sell them another collection and like, just take the money and apologize for your tone.
Which, by the way, seems a little self-serving by your rep.
Yes. Like,
I mean, like,
Yeah, he's like, I actually, like, after they dropped me, he never even called me.
I'll say this. The first year, so I purchased ABG in 2019. And the first year we were up 30%. Things were going great. In a weird way, and it sounds crazy, I'm almost having more fun now, even though, every day it's hard, right? It's really hard, right? And it's a struggle. It's a struggle to figure out what we're going to be, what we're going to turn into. But I do have so much fun with it, right? Because the amount of creativity, drive, and just brain space it takes up to figure out what to turn the company into versus just chugging along is exciting to me, and it just keeps me alive. So maybe in a twisted way, do you feel right now, do you feel discouraged, or do you feel excited and happy?
I've never been like happier.
Okay, so we did it. If you like the second episode of Owner Operated, subscribe, review it, like it, and tell all your friends about us. If you have feedback as to how we can improve, or you are an owner operator who wants to be on the show, email us at feedback@owneroperated.net. Thanks for listening, and join us next week wherever podcasts are available as we chat with another owner operator.